A slot machine hits the jackpot, and gold coins burst out with celebratory fireworks, filling the air with the sound of winning. A 57-year-old murder convict named Quackpill Hype screams in pure joy. He just won over $293 million after being released from prison. The scene shifts to a rooftop overlooking the city at night. The man stands alone on the edge of the Dragon Casino building, but his good fortune didn't last. Now he cries in despair, completely broke and lamenting his situation. And so the story flashes back to a short time earlier, showing someone watching from the shadows as he stood on the ledge. And so, overwhelmed with regret, the man thinks to himself that he should have stopped gambling right after he hit the big jackpot. At that moment, a well-dressed man in a suit approaches him from behind, asking if that is what he is thinking. The stranger walks calmly with his hands in his pockets, carrying an air of cool confidence as he gets closer. He points out that the broke man can't ask his famous daughter for help due to a restraining order and is too scared of loan sharks to die. With a slight smile, the stranger offers to give him enough money to change his life, presenting a strange, glowing pink object. Instantly, an endless stream of cash begins to pour out from the mysterious item he holds in his hand. The suited man explains the deal. The desperate gambler can now take out 1,000,000 every single second. But he then points out that the man has been taking money non-stop for the past 3 hours. He reveals there is a catch. Each time he takes money, something related to him decreases, and he asks if he accepts this. Consumed by greed, Quackpill Hype ignores the warning, his face twisting into a manic expression as he keeps grabbing cash. He stands in a mountain of money, shouting that he made over 10 billion won in just 3 hours and can finally enter the VIP room. His hands clutch the bills tightly, his mind completely focused on his newfound, seemingly endless wealth. Believing this is how he will turn his life around, the stranger simply watches him with a knowing smile. He lies on the ground, surrounded by cash, still reveling in the fact that he is making 1,000,000 every second. With a terrifyingly wide grin, he screams that he was always destined for greatness, completely lost in his greed. Suddenly, the gambler's eyes fly wide open in a silent scream of agony and realization. He collapses to the ground amidst the piles of money, coughing violently as the stranger watches over him. The mysterious figure mockingly asks if he is alright as the man continues to suffer on the floor. Leaning in for a closer look, the stranger's golden eyes watch as the gambler's condition worsens. With a look of shock on his now emaciated face, the man can only stare blankly, clearly not alright. And the stranger reveals the truth, explaining that his greed made him take money until his weight became dangerously low. He calmly clarifies that his body weight decreased by the same amount as the money he took from the wallet. Though with that, the man's lifeless body falls into the money pit, and the stranger turns to walk away. Holding the magical pink wallet, he now wonders who he should give it to for his next game. And so his eyes glow with amusement as he ponders what the next person will lose in exchange for their deepest desires. The scene shifts to a funeral where a 9-year-old boy named Bo tells his older sister not to worry. His 17-year-old sister, Chianhua, cries as her younger brother promises to get into a top university for her. The boy tries to comfort his sister, reminding her their names mean gold, silver, and treasures, a wish from their parents. He clenches his small fist, vowing that he will definitely succeed in life and make her rich. And touched by his determination, his sister listens to him as tears well up in her eyes, and she pulls her little brother into a warm hug, telling him he is saying the words she should be saying instead. While hugging him, she thinks about how kind her brother is, and what a wonderful man he will grow up to be. Years later, a 17-year-old Bo has become the school outcast, forced to wear makeup and silly hair clips. A bully snaps a photo of him, finding the sight hilarious, which causes the outcast to finally snap in anger. Another student smirks confidently, warning Bo not to dare lay a hand on the bully who is tormenting him. A girl suddenly appears, yelling at the bully Yang A-jun, and declaring that she will never forgive him for this. And she angrily asks why they are using her pouch and tells them to stop acting like thugs and bullying other people. One of the students holds the pouch just out of her reach, mocking her friend. She demands that he give it back. She asks Bo if he came to save her again and threatens the bully. The outcast thinks she is both pretty and kind. Yang A-jun simply smiles and pats the girl on the head, leaving her completely stunned and speechless for a moment. She explodes in anger, shouting at him for daring to touch her head while the bully casually agrees to return her things. Bo glares at them, deciding to endure the humiliation for now. He vows to prove them all wrong in a few years. He silently directs his anger at Yang A-jun, who is still smiling while looking down at his phone. He then turns his attention to the other bully, Jin El-sik, who smirks while holding up his own phone. The young man thinks that while these two are just messing around, he is focused on building a better future. He daydreams about a future where he walks alongside Shun-e on a beautiful university campus, successful and happy. In his fantasy, she introduces him to her family, and even her sister is instantly charmed by him. The scene changes to the present. A 25-year-old Bo stares at his phone in shock, seeing Shin-e is abroad with another guy, and so he stands by a vending machine, admitting to himself that he suspected she had a boyfriend but refused to believe it. Now a factory worker, he feels heartbroken over his unrequited love, a feeling he never had the courage to confess. He slowly slowly puts his phone into his pocket, trying to process the painful news. He pulls his phone out again, slightly annoyed at his sister for texting him at such a terrible time. A message from his sister pops up, asking if he wants to eat chicken with her later that day. He then sees a stream of cheerful messages from her, celebrating her recent promotion to supervisor at work, and as he reads her happy texts while taking a sip of his drink, he suddenly spits everything out in surprise. A coworker yells at June, Bo for staring at his phone, telling him that his break ended a long time ago and to get back to work. Walking away, the young man feels hopeful. With his sister's promotion and a potential raise, he thinks about his future. He believes that if he works hard, he will one day be able to date, travel abroad, and finally live a normal life like everyone else. With a small smile, he convinces himself that as long as he remains healthy, sunny days are bound to come for him eventually. But his world shatters when a doctor delivers shocking news. The diagnosis is blood cancer. In the doctor's office, he is in disbelief. The doctor clarifies that it's also known as leukemia. The specialist explains that while they await more test results, the patient must be hospitalized immediately. He is completely lost. He only came to the hospital because his sister collapsed from heatstroke, so he can't understand this sudden turn of events. Tears well up in his eyes as he thinks about how unfair and cruel this situation feels for him and his sister. He remembers how happy she was when she got her promotion, playfully telling him to call her supervisor Chien from now on. The memory of her bright smile fills him with sorrow, and he thinks about how pitiful his sister's life has become. He stands by her hospital bed, watching her stare blankly at a TV screen, realizing this is just how the world is. No matter how hard some people fight to live, they are just not destined to succeed in the end. As he enters her room, she greets him. He thinks that a hopeful future was never meant for people like them. She apologizes, worried about the high hospital bills. She regrets not living her life to the fullest. He clenches his fists in frustration, wondering why his sister feels the need to apologize for her condition. And so, tears stream down his face as he thinks he is the one who should be sorry for not being able to provide for her. Later that night, he takes the subway home, lost in his depressing thoughts under the dark sky. To distract himself, he opens his social media account, which has 0 followers and is following no one. Suddenly, a man on the train becomes aggressive, and Bo immediately apologizes out of fear. He scrolls through his phone's search history, which is filled with the social media profiles of his old classmates. While riding the subway, he admits he lacks the courage to follow them online, so he just quietly looks them up instead. He sees a post from a former classmate celebrating her new civil service job with a trip to Europe, a gift from her parents. Another classmate is already a boss in his 20s, taking over the family business and driving a fancy foreign car. He then finds a photo of a happy couple with their baby, living comfortably in a home their parents provided for them. The feed is full of luxurious photos showcasing travel, fancy meals, and expensive goods that he and his sister could never afford, and so he continues to stare at the images, thinking about how different and unattainable their lifestyles are compared to his own. As he keeps scrolling, a woman standing beside him on the crowded train glances over at his phone screen. She recoils with a look of disgust, and he looks up from his phone, startled by her sudden reaction. The woman quickly walks away, leaving him to realize his attempt to forget his depression only made him face a harsher reality. He sees flashes of their successful lives, knowing he will never travel the world or own a nice car like them. The image of the happy family is a painful reminder that he will never be able to live such an ordinary, peaceful life. He hangs his head, sweat dripping down his face as the crushing weight of his situation settles upon him, and hunched over in his seat, he feels the critical blow to his mental state, completely defeated by the reality of his life. And the scene transitions to a quiet neighborhood street at night, showing he has finally made it home after a long day. Inside his dark apartment, he researches online and discovers that his sister's cancer treatment will be extremely expensive. He sits on the messy floor, surrounded by empty bottles, realizing they have no savings because their money pays off their parents' debts. With his sister hospitalized, he alone must cover all the bills, living costs, and interest on his small salary. Staring blankly at the ceiling, he comes to a bleak and hopeless conclusion, thinking they have no choice but to die. And so then he remembers the life insurance his sister bought for him, realizing the money could save her if he were gone. While drinking, he decides to die so his sister can use his insurance money for her treatment. As a dark shadow appears behind him, a voice suddenly asks if he has the courage to die, causing the young man to choke on his drink in complete shock. And so looks up from the floor to see a well-dressed stranger standing over him, looking down with an unreadable expression. The man smiles and asks if it is not a waste to just live and die without ever experiencing the good things in life. He gets closer, mentioning all the things Bo has not done. The young man nervously asks who he is. The stranger addresses him by name, directly asking if he needs money, which leaves the young man completely stunned. He explains that he only appears before people who are in desperate need of money, and today, that person is him. The mysterious figure then makes an incredible offer, promising to give him enough money to completely change his life. Junbo is left speechless, questioning why this complete stranger would suddenly offer him a fortune out of nowhere. More importantly, he starts to wonder how this person even managed to get inside his locked apartment. He glances at the door, certain that he locked it, which only deepens his confusion and suspicion about the stranger. The man adjusts his tie calmly. Junbo thinks he looks too normal to be some kind of dangerous person. A reflection of the stranger's confident silhouette appears in his eye as he continues to study the mysterious figure. He notices the man's expensive hairstyle, flawless skin, and a suit that is perfectly tailored to his body. Everything about the stranger, from his polished shoes to his confident attitude, suggests he is very wealthy. The young man begins to wonder if this is just some rich person going around doing charity for his own amusement. And suddenly, he thinks he has figured it out, pointing at the stranger and accusing him of filming this for YouTube. He imagines his rundown apartment and difficult life being exploited online as poverty porn, just to get views, and so the thought of someone feeling superior while giving him a few pennies for entertainment makes his blood boil with rage. He angrily confronts the stranger, refusing to sell his family's story and demanding he leave his house at once. In a fit of rage, Junbo grabs the stranger, challenging him to give him 1 billion, or even 10 billion won if he is so generous. With his golden eyes glowing, the man smirks and calmly replies that yes, he can give him that much money, and so he then grabs the young man by the neck, asking if 10 billion would even be enough for all the things he wants to do in life. The stranger explains that with enough money, he can finally save his sick sister and do everything he always postponed for someday. But he adds that there are conditions to his offer and everything depends entirely on Junbo's mindset. The young man is completely baffled by this statement, asking what the stranger could possibly mean by his mindset. He flashes back to all his past hopes and dreams, from vowing to protect his sister to walking with his crush on campus, and so he remembers his naive belief that as long as he stayed healthy, good things would eventually come his way. Now, facing his harsh reality, he looks back and questions what he was even thinking all this time, and the stranger pats his shoulder, and the young man admits that he has been living with the wrong mindset all along. He pushes the stranger's hand away, mocking his own baseless optimism and the positive thinking that led to his current ruin. He sarcastically concludes that the stranger wants to say that with the right mindset, he can earn billions. He explodes in anger, accusing the man of just wanting to blame him for being poor and for his miserable situation. And so, he cries out that he used to believe that if he just worked hard, he would naturally be able to live a good life. But he rants that some people are just born with silver spoons, becoming building owners in Gangnam right out of the womb. He imagines a newborn baby lying on a pile of cash, already a multi-billionaire without lifting a finger. He continues, saying that the rich can just hire people to take exams for them or steal test papers if they have money, and if that does not work, they can simply go abroad to launder their academic credentials and return with a clean slate. When they get older, their wealthy parents just set up a business for them, and they effortlessly get to be called boss. He adds that they can also become celebrities, streamers, or even marry into wealth to climb the social ladder without any real talent. Crying uncontrollably, the young man screams that in this society, having the right mindset and working hard are completely useless. He collapses in defeat, muttering that life is determined by luck from the moment a person is born. The stranger looms over him, suggesting that meeting him should be considered the greatest fortune of his entire lifetime. Leaning closer, he tells Junbo that all he needs is the mindset to bet his life on this one opportunity. With his golden eyes gleaming, the stranger tells him to look forward to the future that this money can change. The young man's hopeful but terrified face is reflected in the stranger's piercing gaze. At the very edge of life with nowhere left to retreat, he stares blankly, contemplating the impossible offer. The stranger, a self-proclaimed king of money, looks down at him, ready to seal the deal. He repeats that the money he offers has the power to completely change Junbo's future. The reflection in his eyes shows the young man, a glimmer of hope now visible on his face, and so, he thinks about his future, and how this money could be the key to changing everything for the better. With this power, he could finally save his sick sister and do everything he has ever wanted to do in his life. Now considering the offer more seriously, he looks up and asks the stranger what the limit is. The mysterious figure calls him sharp for asking, as Junbo questions if the money is unlimited. The man confirms that it is not, explaining that he does not need unlimited funds to change his life. He then prepares to introduce the source of this incredible power to the curious young man. He presents a small, glowing pink wallet, introducing the strange object as the wallet beast. The stranger explains that the amount of money he can take from this wallet is exactly 1 million won. Junbo is outraged, thinking the man is joking and that 1 million won is nowhere near enough to solve his problems. With a sharp look, the stranger clarifies his offer. It is 1 million won every single second. The stranger explains that from the moment Junbo owns it, the wallet's limit will increase by 1 million won every second. He demonstrates by showing that after just 10 seconds, the amount will already be 10 million won. After 1 minute, he continues, the total will reach 60 million won, which he shows to the astonished young man. He then asks him to imagine the wallet's limit after a full 24 hours have passed, as money rains down around them, and the young man's mind races, unable to comprehend the astronomical sum of money he could potentially have. And the stranger teases him for being a bit slow at mental math, while holding out the magical wallet for him to take. He adds that the limit should be more than enough to satisfy him, as cash continues to pile up on the floor. More importantly, he reveals that any money taken from the wallet is completely tax-free and will never be investigated. He asks if it is hard to believe and snaps his fingers, seemingly summoning more money from the wallet. The stranger says there is nothing more he can do if Jumbo still refuses to believe what he is seeing with his own eyes. Now somewhat convinced, the young man remembers the catch and asks about the condition the stranger mentioned earlier. With a smirk, the man confirms his suspicion, stating that nothing in this world is ever truly free. He explains that while Jumbo can take money anytime and anywhere he wants, there is a price to pay for this power. The price is that for the amount of money he takes, something related to him will decrease in equal measure. Confused by the vague explanation, the young man asks what the stranger means by the word something. The stranger just smiles, irresponsibly suggesting he try taking out a few $100 billion if he is that curious. Then holding up 3 fingers, the stranger explains there are 3 specific cases where he can no longer take money. He holds his hand up, showing the 3 fingers clearly as he lays out the rules of their contract. The first rule is that if the thing related to him keeps decreasing and eventually disappears, the wallet will stop working. The second rule is that if he does not take money from the wallet for 30 consecutive days, it will also become useless. The final rule is that if he transfers, abandons, or dies, he will completely give up ownership of the wallet beast. With a confident smile, the stranger asks if the rules are simple enough for him to understand. He then holds out the wallet, telling Jumbo that it is now time for him to make a decision. The moment he takes the wallet, he will gain access to enormous wealth, but it comes at a great cost, and so he will lose something precious related to himself in exchange for all the money he could ever want. The stranger then wonders aloud if, even with all that money, the young man can truly find happiness. And Jumbo weighs his options. He can die and give his sister the insurance money, or die as his lifespan decreases with the money he spends. He realizes that either way his fate is sealed, so there is no reason to refuse this once-in-a-lifetime offer. With newfound determination, he reaches out his hand to accept the magical wallet from the stranger. His face is set with resolve as his fingers close around the strange object, ready to accept his fate. As he takes the wallet, a powerful energy surges through him, and the stranger watches with glowing golden eyes. And the stranger's eyes shine brightly as the transfer of power is completed between the two of them. A bright light envelopes the young man, his hair standing on end as he screams from the sudden rush of energy. The force of the energy is so intense that it throws him back, and he stumbles backward from the sheer power. He lands hard on the floor as the energy dissipates, leaving him breathless and disoriented from the experience. The stranger has vanished, and the room is now silent. He finds himself alone, holding the magical wallet in his hand. He adjusts his glasses, still trying to process the unbelievable events that have just transpired in his apartment. He clutches the wallet tightly, a mix of fear and excitement coursing through his veins as he stares at it. To test if it is real, he decides to take out some money, and instantly, stacks of cash appear on the floor. He kneels before the piles of money in complete disbelief, muttering that this must be a lie. He opens the wallet and looks inside, confirming that it is completely empty to the naked eye. But when he thinks of an amount and puts his hand in, he is shocked to see bundles of money come out. He tests it again, turning the wallet upside down, and even more cash pours out, making him wonder if this is all a dream. In an instant he has made 65 million won, and he kneels on the floor, staring at the incredible fortune before him. He then clutches his chest, feeling a slight pain, and wonders just how much of his life has decreased in exchange for the money. Looking at the empty bottles and the cash, he realizes it was obvious. The stranger appeared the moment he decided to die. It all becomes clear. The man gives him money equal to the life he was about to give up, meaning his lifespan decreases as he spends. He accepts his fate, deciding that with this wallet, he will save his sister and do whatever he wants before he dies. As he looks at the magical object one more time, he notices something strange on its surface. He inspects the wallet closely and sees 2 small dot-like stains that he did not see before. Suddenly the dots on the wallet blink, transforming into a pair of tiny, living eyes. He screams in terror and flails backward, completely startled by the sudden and impossible revelation. The wallet bounces on the floor, moving like a small, living creature, confirming his fears. He sits in shock, covering his mouth as he processes the unbelievable fact that the wallet is alive. The next day the scene shifts to his workplace, a seafood processing factory. During his break, he sits alone on a bench, holding a small, cute pouch pouch on his lap. He opens the pouch to reveal the living wallet inside, offering it a drink of water from a bottle cap. He apologizes to the creature for leaving it home alone, showing a surprising amount of care for it. As he tells the wallet to get some fresh air, one of his coworkers suddenly appears behind him. The man leans in close, looking at the pouch and mockingly asking if he is feeling lonely, and startled by his coworker Junbo lets out a cry of surprise. The man laughs, thinking he has finally lost his mind. The bully leans in, mockingly asking if he is now talking to a coin purse, clearly finding the situation hilarious. The young man frantically tries to explain, nervously opening his pouch to show the magical wallet resting inside. His coworker peers inside but only sees a simple pink wallet which appears completely normal and inanimate. He insists that it is alive and has cute eyes, but the man just gets more annoyed, rolling up his sleeves. The bully threatens to beat him until he comes to his senses, raising his hand to slap him across the face. A sharp blow lands hard, the impact echoing through the quiet break room as the young man winces in pain. The abuse continues with another hit as the coworker orders him to go buy cigarettes if he has nothing better to do. This triggers memories of past harassment, like being hit for supposedly eating all the pork cutlets during lunch, and he remembers another time he was beaten for no reason at all, simply because the bully felt like it that day. But this time is different. When his coworker swings again, he swiftly dodges the attack, surprising the man. He then catches the bully's arm mid-swing, stopping the next blow with unexpected strength and resolve. With newfound courage, he lands a powerful punch right across the man's jaw, sending him stumbling backward. As his tormentor collapses onto the bench, the young man says he has been waiting for this moment. He pulls a folded paper from his pocket, explaining he has been carrying it for a while but now has a reason to use it. The paper is his official resignation letter, which he holds up for the dazed bully to see. The reason for his resignation is clearly stated on the form. He won first place in the lottery. As his former coworker reads the letter in complete disbelief, Junbo proudly declares that he is now unemployed. He turns and walks away with confidence, finally free from the job he hated and the abuse he endured. With a satisfied smile, he looks forward to his new life, ready to enjoy being rich and unemployed. His first stop as a newly rich man is a luxurious 5-star hotel, a place he has never been before. He walks into a high-end restaurant, a stack of cash in hand, ready to experience the life he has only dreamed of. Surrounded by 2 beautiful women, he smiles, finally able to enjoy the perks of having money. And so his next destination is the hospital, where he brings an extravagant and beautifully arranged sushi platter for his sister. She sits up in her hospital bed, her eyes wide with amazement at the feast laid out before her, and she asks what all of this is, and he explains that she needs to eat well during her chemotherapy. He tells her he bought it because he knows she likes sushi and saw other young women enjoying it at the restaurant. But his sister is concerned, pointing out that the meal looks incredibly expensive and asks where he got the money. He casually brushes off her worry, saying it only costs around 30,000 won, a clear lie to hide the true price. The scene goes blank for a moment, emphasizing the gap between their realities. He thinks to himself that this hotel sushi costs 50 times that amount, but his sister would never know. Suddenly she changes the subject, asking why he is not at work, and he quickly pours some sauce on the sushi, and she points out his cracked glasses and asks if he skipped work, worried that he is acting recklessly again. He quickly reassures her, leaning in close to reveal the real reason for his newfound freedom and wealth. The young man tells his sister that he won first place in the lottery, leaving her completely stunned. To prove it, he shows her his phone with the winning lottery ticket displayed on the screen. She takes the phone, staring at the huge prize amount in her disbelief, unable to process the news. A moment later, she lets out a piercing scream of joy, startling another patient in the room next to her. She examines the screen closely, still trying to understand how this incredible luck came their way. He watches her, thinking to himself that it is a good thing she was so easily fooled by the fake lottery app. He dismisses her concerns, telling her to think of it as a celebration party and just enjoy the food. But as she looks at the phone, tears begin to stream down her face, and she starts to sob uncontrollably. And she confesses that she has been terrified, not only of being sick and the side effects of chemo, but also of leaving him all alone. And she was even more scared of the expensive treatment, worried that she would become a burden and ruin his future. And so with tears in her eyes, she smiles, relieved that they will not have to use the savings she had set aside for his future. He is deeply touched by her selflessness, thinking about how she always worries about him first, even in her condition. He tells her to stop crying and eat, but she hesitates, still overwhelmed by her emotions. Then she reveals she cannot eat raw food because of her chemo, and he chokes on his drink in surprise. In the end, his sister ends up sharing the expensive sushi with the other patients in her hospital room. A nurse then enters the room and calls for her, and she looks up from her meal, a piece of sushi in her hand. The nurse informs her that the private room she applied for is ready, and she can move in at any time. The new room is incredibly luxurious, with a comfortable sofa, a large TV, and even its own private kitchen area. They are both stunned by the opulent room. She asks if this is a hospital room or a 5-star hotel. He smiles, telling her that she will be receiving her treatment here from now on, away from any potential risks, and she argues that it is too much. but he explains that her low white blood cell count makes her vulnerable to infection. He then quickly makes an excuse to leave, saying he needs to buy new glasses, and says his goodbyes. And she watches him go, a mix of gratitude and concern on her face, still trying to process everything. The scene shifts to a high-end department store, where he has gone to buy himself a new pair of glasses. As he looks around the store, he is lost in thought, still feeling the weight of his new reality. And suddenly, a familiar voice calls out to him, and he turns to see one of his old high school bullies, Jinil-sik. He is shocked to see his old bully, remembering how he used to torment him back in high school. He recalls that Jinil-sik was always obsessed with Gucci, even back then, constantly showing off his expensive clothes. But he never imagined that his former tormentor would end up working at a Gucci store after graduation. The bully greets him with a mocking tone, rudely asking what he is doing in such a high-end department store. Junbo explains that he is there to buy glasses and clothes, but his former classmate just bursts out laughing. Another employee tries to intervene, telling his senior that he is going too far, but the bully brushes him off. He puts his arm around the young man, telling his coworker that he was a lackey in high school, but the employee insists he is a customer. The bully scoffs at the idea, claiming he has no money and was known as the famous beggar at their school. In response, Junbo calmly pulls out a thick wad of cash from his pouch, ready to prove him wrong. He holds up the money, confidently stating that he does, in fact, have money to spend, and plenty of it. The bully is stunned into silence, his eyes wide with disbelief as he stares at the stack of bills, but his shock quickly turns into a greedy smile as a new, opportunistic idea forms in his mind. He completely changes his tune, dressing Junbo in head to toe Gokshi and praising his own styling skills. An employee kneels to hem his pants while the bully snaps photos, telling his coworker to move out of the way. The two of them laugh and celebrate, with Jinil-sik boasting about how classy he has made his old classmate look. He thinks to himself that this is the perfect opportunity to milk this sucker for all he is worth and get a big incentive. Junbo agrees to buy the entire outfit, and the bully's face lights up with excitement at the huge sale. He slaps his customer on the back, praising his generosity and telling him to wait on the sofa for a moment. But the young man clarifies that he will be buying the clothes, just not from his former tormentor. Instead, he points to the kind employee who tried to help him earlier, declaring that he will buy from him. So the bully is shocked by his decision, but Junbo reminds him that it is up to the buyer to choose who they purchase from. He then leans in, telling his former tormentor that he plans to come to the store often, a subtle threat in his voice. And so he makes it clear that he will only ever buy from the kind employee, leaving the bully fuming with anger. And then, he turns to the other employee and asks to see the women's clothing section, with the man eagerly leading the way. Later, Jinil-sik sends a message to his friends, sharing a photo of Junbo and spreading rumors that he won the lottery. The message reaches Yang A-jun, who laughs at the photo while celebrating his anniversary with his girlfriend. She is annoyed that he is on his phone during their special dinner, and he quickly apologizes. He explains that his friend just sent him something ridiculous, trying to downplay his distraction. He then shows her the photo, asking if she remembers Chien Fatty from their high school days. As he shows her the picture, he is suddenly surprised to see who is standing right behind him. Junbo, now dressed in his new expensive clothes, greets his old classmates with a confident smile. And so the couple is shocked by his sudden appearance, with Yang A-jun nervously looking at the photo on his phone, and he tries to play it off as a coincidence, but his former victim has other plans for this encounter. After leaving the department store, he had searched for a trendy restaurant and found this very place. He had seen a photo of his old crush, Shunny, at this restaurant and decided to come here. With a smirk, he reveals that he came here on purpose, ready to confront his past and finally turn the tables. Yang Jun realizes that the rumor must be true, and his old classmate has indeed won the lottery. The fact that he just spent a fortune at Jinil-sik's store is all the proof he needs. Shin, however, greets him warmly, commenting on how much he has changed since she last saw him. He then notices the anniversary cake on their table, a hint of a plan forming in his mind. He congratulates the couple on their anniversary, but the girl is confused by his sudden and overly familiar tone, and he then turns his attention to his former bully, ready to finally get his revenge on him. He leans in close, whispering that Yang A-jun has gotten cheap since he last saw him. He mocks him for ordering single items instead of a full course for their anniversary, calling his choice tacky. He then reveals that he studied the menu on his way there and knows the course comes with both steak and lobster. He also points out that they ordered wine by the glass, a clear sign that they are trying to save money. He takes a sniff of the wine, confidently declaring that it is cheap, further humiliating his former tormentor. Yang A-jun's face twists with rage, unable to believe the audacity of the person he used to bully, and so he grabs his former victim by the collar, threatening to remind him of the beatings he used to get in school. But Junbo calmly warns him to keep his hands to himself, reminding him that his new clothes are expensive. Shinny quickly intervenes, telling her boyfriend to stop and that she hates violence, which only angers him more. He tries to calm the situation, holding up his hands and asking for a moment to explain himself. He then pulls out a bottle of expensive vintage wine, a 24 2014 domain Leflave Montrachet as a gift. He explains that he is repaying her for the kindness she showed him when he was bullied in school. She is flustered by the extravagant gift, telling him it is not necessary, but he insists. He then says his goodbyes, leaving the couple to their date as he waves and walks away. The girl is thrilled with the expensive wine, telling her boyfriend how amazing it is and how it saves them money, but he is still fuming, unable to accept the sudden shift in power and the humiliation he just endured, and he storms after his former victim, calling out to him as he reaches the front desk of the restaurant, and he shoves him from behind, angrily shouting at him for treating him like a beggar and refusing his disgusting gift. He proudly tells the employee to charge the expensive wine to his card, trying to assert his dominance, but Jumbo calmly informs him that the bottle costs 3.5 million won and asks if he is sure he can afford it. With a smug smile, he tells his former bully not to aver to it, reminding him that he saw his financial situation earlier. He then recalls a memory from their school days when Yang A-jun confiscated his new earphones, and so he remembers begging for them back, explaining they were a birthday gift from his sister, but the bully just mocked him. Now, he throws those same words back at his former tormentor, telling him to live within his means. Overcome with shame and anger, the bully finally gives in, insisting the wine be put on his card. Later, Jumbo is at a restaurant, grilling thick slices of pork belly, a happy and content look on his face. He dances in his seat, declaring that after all the fancy food, cold pork belly is still the best, and he happily eats a piece of the grilled meat, admitting that he still prefers this simple meal over any expensive dish. He reflects on how he used to eat so little because of his lack of money, but now he can finally eat until he is full. He then opens his bag and offers a piece of the cooked pork belly to his living wallet, whom he has named Lotto-chan. The wallet creature blinks, seemingly confused by the offer of food but accepts it nonetheless. He then notices a strange new protrusion on the wallet's side, which looks like a small, developing wing. He stares in shock as the wallet wiggles its new wings, wondering why they have suddenly appeared, and a sudden realization dawns on him as he connects the dots between the money and the wallet's changes. He stares at his magical companion, a look of horror on his face as he understands what is happening, and so he realizes that the more money he takes out, the more the wallet evolves, and he wonders what it will become. He remembers that when he first received it, the wallet was just an inanimate object, with no signs of life, but right after he took out 65 million won it came to life, sprouting eyes and now, even wings. He recalls that the wallet grew eyes and started moving after he took out his first sum of money, and now, after spending even more, the magical creature has sprouted a pair of tiny wings. He sits on the floor, counting the money has taken out so far, realizing it has reached 253 million won, and so he admits to himself that he was so blinded by the money that he did not even notice the wallet's changes. He understands the terrifying truth: the more the wallet evolves, the faster his own life is decreasing. He looks at the sizzling pork belly on the grill, a mix of fear and determination in his eyes. But he quickly dismisses his worries, deciding that since he only has one life, he will live it to the fullest. He declares that today, he will eat as much cold pork belly as he wants, even if it makes him burst. As he is about to take another bite, he suddenly feels a sharp, burning sensation in his stomach. He drops his chopsticks in pain and checks the scale, shocked to see that his weight has increased drastically. He stares at his reflection, unable to believe how much weight he has gained in just one day of indulgent eating. He realizes that at this rate, he will die of high cholesterol long before his lifespan runs out. He holds the small wallet creature in his hands, telling himself that he needs to manage his health because he cannot die yet. With a determined look, he says that he still has too many things he wants to do before his time is up. That night, he lies in bed, excitedly planning all the luxurious things he wants to do with his money. His new designer clothes and the stacks of cash he has withdrawn are piled up on the floor beside him. The fan in his small, cluttered room wears a stark contrast to the extravagant life he is now planning, and even the simple, worn-out kitchen in his apartment seems out of place with his newfound wealth. Suddenly, he wakes up with a jolt, a look of panic on his face as he realizes he has overslept. He scrambles out of bed, wondering what time it is and why his alarm did not go off as it should have. He checks his phone, realizing he is late, but the usual panic does not set in as it used to. He then sees his magical wallet sleeping soundly on the pillow beside him, a small, cute creature. With a laugh, he remembers that he does not have to go to work anymore and can finally relax. He greets his companion, Lotto-chan, and asks it to take care of him for the day ahead. For the first time in years, he has a weekday all to himself, with no school or work to worry about. He gets a haircut at a fancy barbershop, still amazed that he quit his job without any notice. He used to break out in a cold sweat if he was even 10 minutes late for work, but now things are different. Just because he has money, he is no longer afraid of his company or the consequences of his actions. He walks out of the department store, feeling a newfound sense of freedom and confidence he has never experienced. He finally understands why rich people can be so confident about everything they do in life. The once intimidating neighborhood of Cheongdam-dong no longer makes him feel out of place or insecure. He now blends in with the wealthy crowd, walking with his head held high, full of confidence. As he is walking, a car pulls up and a beautiful woman in a stylish dress steps out. He is captivated by her beauty, the sunlight glinting off her as she exits the luxury vehicle. He stares in awe, wondering if she is an idol or some other famous celebrity. Completely mesmerized, he feels like he is getting a front-row view of the high-class life he has only ever dreamed of. He follows her, curious to see what kind of event is happening that would attract such a person. He looks up at the building she enters and sees a series of flashy signs for various adult entertainment businesses. He quickly shakes his head, scolding himself for his impure thoughts and for wasting his precious time. He snaps his fingers, reminding himself to stay focused on his goals and not get distracted by such things. He looks up at the sky, a determined expression on his face, convinced that pure love is the best thing in the world. And just then, a beautiful woman with blonde hair taps him on the shoulder, getting his attention. She gives him a bright, friendly smile, and he is instantly captivated by her stunning beauty. He blushes, completely flustered by her sudden appearance and charming smile, unable to hide his surprise. She compliments his cool style and asks if he has some time to spare, leaving him even more flustered. He is in disbelief, wondering if this is the pickup he has only ever heard about in stories. He realizes that his expensive clothes, new hairstyle, and confident attitude are all thanks to the money he now has. Because of his newfound wealth, pretty women are now approaching him, something he never thought possible before. He eagerly agrees, telling her that he has plenty of time, and she smiles, happy that her plan is working. But then she pulls out a camera and asks him how much his entire outfit costs, revealing her true intentions. And he is taken aback by her sudden question, staring at the camera with a look of confusion on his face. The woman, a streamer, explains that his outfit looks like it costs over 10 million won and asks him to reveal the total. She gushes over his rich person style, and he plays along, pretending that he bought everything without looking at the prices. He then remembers that he just bought the clothes and still has the receipts in his bag, and the streamer is thrilled, explaining that the receipts are proof that his expensive items are not fakes. She takes the receipts and begins to calculate the total cost of his outfit for her online audience. A short video is later posted online, showcasing his entire outfit with the price of each item listed, totaling over 18 million won. Back at home, he watches the video, amazed at how quickly it was edited and uploaded, and starts thinking about his next move. As he is watching, he receives a direct message on his social media account from a stranger. The message is a long and desperate plea for help from a 25-year-old man in a difficult situation, and he sits in his messy room, thinking about how celebrities must get hundreds of messages asking for money, and now he knows it is true. He realizes his mistake was giving out his lurking social media account to the streamer, which led to this flood of requests. Overwhelmed by the sudden public attention, he decides to just delete the account and avoid the problem altogether. But as he is about to do so, a new message pops up from an account named Princess Rin, and his finger hovers over the screen. He spits out his drink in shock, his eyes wide with disbelief as he reads the name of the sender. He stares at the message, unable to believe that the Princess Rin, from his high school days, has actually contacted him. He looks at her profile picture, a photo of her at the beach, and confirms that is really her. He nervously bites his phone, his mind racing as he tries to process this unbelievable turn of events. He remembers her as the representative goddess of their school, a true princess in every sense of the word. And so from her freshman year, she was loved by all the senior delinquents, and even his bullies had to bow down to her. And she had conquered the entire school with just her beauty and physique, a queen among her peers. He sweats nervously, realizing he probably never even had a single conversation with her back then, and so he kneels on the floor, contemplating whether he should take a chance and reply to her message. He types out a quick reply, greeting her and mentioning it has been a long time since they last saw each other. To his surprise, she reads his message almost instantly, and he is shocked by how fast she saw it. And she replies, teasingly saying that he is still the same as he was back then, which makes him even more flustered. He stares at his phone, his mouth agape, in complete disbelief that the princess actually remembers him. She then asks what he has been doing, and his mind immediately jumps to romantic conclusions. And so he thinks about their school days, how they were just two people who passed each other by without a word, and now, their coincidental reunion after graduation feels like the beginning of a classic romance story to him. As he is lost in his romantic fantasies, the doorbell rings, and his wallet creature chirps on his head. He checks his delivery, happy to see that it has arrived so quickly, and places Lotto-chan on the box. He peeks out of his room, excited to eat his food while chatting with his new online love interest, but he stops in his tracks, a look of confusion on his face as he sees who is at his door. He walks out of his room, wondering where he is and how these unexpected visitors found his home, and his two former bullies, Yang A-jun and Jin Il-sik, are standing in his doorway, and he is shocked to see them. And so Jin Il-sik explains that he got his address from the department store membership card he signed up for, and so the bully then pushes him inside, telling him they have a lot to talk about, a menacing look in his eyes. The door slams shut behind them, trapping him inside his own apartment with his two tormentors. They look around his messy apartment, mocking its smell and appearance, and he realizes they are there for a surprise attack. And so, he understands that they have come together to get revenge for what happened at the restaurant. Yang A-jun slams a stack of money on the table, still fuming about the humiliation he endured the day before. But Jun-bo is no longer afraid, a determined and serious expression on his face as he prepares to face them. He suddenly panics, realizing that his magical wallet is still outside on the delivery box. He knows that to others Lotto Chain just looks like an inanimate object, but he cannot risk them finding it. He quickly grabs the wallet, telling it to wait for a moment and that he will hold it for a bit. He turns to face his bullies, a confident and defiant look in his eyes, ready for whatever they have planned. So, they remind him that they came to talk, but their sinister smiles betray their true intentions. He clenches his fist, no longer the loser he once was, and tells them to bring it on. He warns them that whatever they do to him, he will use his money to do the same thing back to them. He stares them down, a fierce look in his eyes as he prepares for the confrontation. But instead of a fight, his two former bullies suddenly drop to their knees, begging for his help. They sit on the sofa as their former victims kneel before them, a complete reversal of their old dynamic. And so with hopeful smiles, they ask him to think of it as an investment in their future. They propose a deal. If he lends them 50 million won each, they will pay him back 120 million in a year. They try to explain that they are not incapable, but were scammed by stock fraudsters, which is why they need the money. And he stares at them, amazed that his two former tormentors are now kneeling and begging before him. And so, they try to convince him that is a great opportunity, explaining that the more capital, the higher the return. He realizes the true power of money. It has the ability to make even the proudest people submit. And they try to appeal to their shared past, suggesting they forget their history and get along from now on. One of them even tries to justify his request, saying that those who have should give to those who do not. He stares at them, a dark and calculating look in his eyes as he considers their proposal. And so, he remembers a time in high school when they cornered him, demanding the money he had saved for his sister's birthday. And so he had tried to refuse, but they just beat him, telling him to shut up and hand over the cash. And so they had threatened him, saying he would die if he did not give them the money, a terrifying memory he can never forget. They had mocked him, saying that those without money should just crawl on their own and not act so cocky. A dark and vengeful look crosses his face as he remembers all the pain and humiliation they put him through. He throws their own words back at them, asking if it is not the ones without who should be crawling on their own. He then makes a counteroffer, suggesting that he hit each of them just once before he decides whether to give them the money. They are outraged by his proposal, but he stands his ground, no longer the weak person they once knew. The two bullies whisper to each other, deciding to just play along since they think he has weak punches anyway. And so, one of them tells the other to just think about the 50 million they will get. But the other is still hesitant. He reluctantly agrees, but tells Jun-bo to avoid his face when he hits him because he still has to go to work. The young man asks if they can forget the past with this one hit, and his former tormentor readily agrees. He then throws a powerful punch, his fist flying towards the bully with incredible speed and force. The blow lands squarely on the man's stomach, and he smiles, sarcastically declaring that he is done. The punch is so strong that it sends the bully flying across the room, leaving his friend in complete shock. He crashes into the wall, his eyes wide with a mix of pain and disbelief at the unexpected power of the hit. The other bully is stunned, knowing his friend is shameless, but he never expected him to put on such a dramatic reaction. He lies on the floor, pretending to be knocked out, and his friend realizes he is just a coward who would sell his soul for money. He then turns to the other bully, telling him not to worry because he is pretty sturdy and can be hit anywhere. With a fierce look, the young man throws another punch, this time with even more force and determination. But just as the punch is about to land, something strange and unexpected happens, stopping the blow in mid-air. The two of them are thrown into the air, their bodies suspended in a dark void as time seems to slow down around them. Meanwhile, at the hospital, his sister is on the phone, telling him not to worry and to just do what he needs to do. And she hangs up, telling him she will see him tomorrow, as her work colleagues are visiting her. Her friends comment on how well the siblings get along, and she proudly tells them about her money-making brother. They are relieved to see her in such good spirits, especially after hearing she had to take sick leave, and so they encourage her to get better soon for her brother's sake, telling her she is too young and pretty to be in the hospital. As they are talking, one of her friends remembers another coworker who was also diagnosed with leukemia. She listens to their conversation, a sad and thoughtful expression on her face, but she does not say a word. The scene then shifts to Jun-bo, who is on the phone, telling his sister he will visit her at the hospital tomorrow. He hangs up, a heavy sigh escaping his lips as he stands on the street, still feeling uneasy. He had come out to meet Princess Rin after she asked him, but he is still incredibly nervous about it. He realizes that, excluding his relatives, he has never been alone with a woman before in his entire life. Suddenly, a hand playfully pokes his cheek, and he turns to see who it is, a look of surprise on his face. It is Princess Rin, who greets him with a cheerful "long time no see." a bright smile on her face. He is completely flustered by her sudden appearance and her playful touch, his face turning bright red. He stares at her, still in disbelief that the beautiful Princess Rin is making physical contact with him, and she asks if he has eaten yet, and he is so flustered that he can barely get a word out in response. He mentally scolds himself for losing his senses for a moment, trying to regain his composure in front of her. He quickly recovers, telling her he has found a restaurant nearby, but she gently stops him. She takes his arm, a soft and confident touch that sends shivers down his spine, and he freezes in place. And so she tells him that she has a reservation at another restaurant, and that they should go there instead. He is so overwhelmed by her touch and her beauty that he can barely think, his mind a complete blank. He does not remember what they talked about or what the restaurant was like, his memory a complete blur, and so the only thing he remembers is the way she smiled at him, a memory that is now burned into his mind. And he also recalls how everyone they passed on the street, both men and women, stared at the two of them. He vividly remembers the feeling of her slender skin and her body temperature as her arm was wrapped around his. All his nerves were concentrated on that single point of contact, a sensation he will never forget. The restaurant she has reserved is a high-end establishment where all the tables are in private rooms. The air conditioning is turned up high, making the room chilly, but he feels the exact opposite. Despite the cold, sweat pours down his body like rain, a clear sign of his extreme nervousness. She leans in close, asking if he is hot, and he is so flustered that he can barely process her words. She gently touches his face, wiping away the sweat, and he lets out a silent scream of pure shock. She asks if he is okay, her beautiful eyes full of concern, and he is completely mesmerized by her. He stares at her, his heart pounding in his chest, completely captivated by the beautiful princess beside him. She leans in very close to the young man, her hand gently holding his chin as he looks completely flustered. He panics, realizing that at this rate they will certainly end up touching. His eyes widen in pure shock, his glasses appearing slightly crooked from his surprise. But just as she gets closer, he suddenly grabs her wrist, stopping her movement. Holding her arm firmly, he looks at her with a serious expression and calls her Princess Rin. He then asks with genuine concern if someone had hit her, his eyes fixed on her arm. She seems surprised by his sudden question, asking what he's talking about. The man gestures towards her arm, explaining that he saw some spots there. He asks if the patches are covering up bruises from some kind of injury. Rin explains that the slightly larger patch is a cooling one, while the smaller one is a heating patch, and she elaborates that she uses both types on the same arm depending on the condition of the bruise. After a detailed explanation, she lets out a small laugh, covering her mouth as he looks on. She then confidently asks what he's talking about, questioning who would ever dare to hit her. The woman reveals that the bruises are actually from pole dancing, caused by friction with the pole. Proudly, she shows off her figure, stating that a body like hers couldn't be achieved without effort. His mind immediately conjures an image of Princess Rin gracefully performing on a pole. The young man is left speechless, thinking she is absolutely amazing and the best, and she then changes the subject, mentioning she's hungry and asking what he would like to eat. He holds his fork while looking at the main dish, which costs 230,000 won. A waiter clears his plate as he notes that the portions are tiny, like works of art. As he cuts his steak, he finds himself thinking about the bibimbap he ate a few days ago. He remembers how his sister would make it for them once a week. In his memory, she tells him to stop adding so much sesame oil, but he insists it makes it tastier. They used to eat it on the floor, mixing all the leftovers so nothing would go to waste. And so until now he had always considered food as just a simple way to fill his stomach. But he realizes that people with money, like the woman beside him, truly savor the experience. She notices him staring and asks why, so he quickly says the food is just really delicious. So with a small smile she says that now they finally have something to talk about. He realizes she noticed how quiet he had been during their meal, lost in his thoughts. The woman mentions that people who are financially secure tend to be kinder and more gentle. Later, they are seen walking together, and she affectionately calls him Jurin Chan. She smiles warmly at him, seemingly enjoying their time together. And so, he then understands that she has been paying close attention to him this whole time. The memory of her leaning in close, her face just inches from his, flashes through his mind. He sits at the table, flustered, wondering what her intentions were when she wiped his sweat. Suddenly, he stands up in a panic, exclaiming that he completely forgot something important. He nervously answers his phone, identifying himself as being from a real estate office, and so the man explains he was supposed to call 30 minutes before his scheduled appointment. While he's on the phone, Rin asks if she can see the house tomorrow instead. He continues the call, trying to figure out what he should do next, and she overhears his phone conversation and asks if he is looking for a house through a real estate agent. And so, Rin then tells him not to worry if he is going through this trouble because of her. and with a gentle smile, she suggests that they can simply go look at the house together. They soon arrive at a newly built apartment complex near a major station area. The grounds are well designed with beautiful walkways throughout the complex. It also boasts community facilities with reasonable management fees and everything one might need. An agent greets them, showing them a vacant unit with an extended balcony and a spacious guest room. The real estate agent says the 30 pyong unit is the perfect size for a newly married couple. The young man immediately gets flustered, insisting they are not newlyweds but just friends, and he clarifies that his sister will be living in the house by herself, so the assumption is incorrect. After checking the view, he asks if there is another unit available that faces the landscape, and the agent explains that there is one, but another person has already signed a contract for it, and so the man asks if the agent could contact the person who signed the contract for the other apartment. He then makes a bold offer, promising to pay 3 times the original deposit amount. The agent is left speechless as the man also offers to pay for their moving expenses, and his companion tells him to wait, suggesting he could get a much better place for that price, and she asks why he is trying so hard when he could just find another apartment in a better location. He calmly looks at her and explains that it is his sister's wish to live in this specific apartment. She then says that if triple the deposit isn't enough, he should just ask their price. Elsewhere, his sister smiles brightly, thinking to herself that she has really hit the jackpot. As they walk home, his sister remarks that rich people in fancy apartments must be in a different class. He carries a vacuum while she holds a rice cooker. She then notices the patches on his arm and asks him what happened to it. He nervously lies, claiming he just exercised too hard in gym class and is now suffering from muscle pain. But the truth is he was bullied at school, a secret he could never bring himself to tell his sister. He keeps the painful memory hidden, a single bead of sweat rolling down his face as he tries to act normal. She then lectures him on how to use hot and cold patches, asking where it hurts. He stammers that he already knows what to do, and feeling guilty, he suddenly apologizes to her for being a brother who can't even buy her a birthday present. She reassures him, promising to buy him anything he wants once she starts earning a lot of money in the future. With a bright smile, she points towards a distant building and tells him to work hard and buy her that. They look at the very apartment complex he wants for her, but he dismisses it as impossible. She laughs and says she was just joking, and still, she adds that if she could just live in a house with that view, she would have no other wishes. Back in the present, the previous contractor happily accepts a triple deposit to cancel his agreement for the apartment. He signs the new contract, ensuring the house with the perfect landscape view now belongs to his sister. He tells Rin the deposit has been transferred, adding that he also signed a contract for his own home. The young man got himself a luxurious penthouse on the 54th floor, the highest residence in the country. Rin is shocked by this, asking him to reconsider because the monthly rent must be far too expensive. She explains the rent is almost an office worker's annual salary and suggests getting a deposit to lower it. Touched by her concern, he just smiles, unable to find the right words to respond. He looks out the massive window, thinking he can't tell her his life is on a timer. After securing his sister's home and future, he looks at his own hands, ready for what comes next. He looks at the small, smiling creature in his hands, thinking he can now die without any regrets. He asks Lotto Chan to take care of him until the end. At that moment, a sound from the entryway makes him turn around in surprise. He walks toward the door wondering who it could be since he hasn't ordered anything. He figures it might just be the management office, but when he looks at the intercom screen, his eyes widen in complete and utter shock. He sees Princess Rin's face on the monitor, unable to believe she is actually there. She stands right outside his front door, and he has no idea how she could have possibly found his new apartment. And so a little while later, she is sitting on his couch, asking if he wants her to live with him, and he is completely flustered, questioning why she would suddenly want to move in with him. She explains that she was kicked out of her old place and lost her deposit because she couldn't pay the rent. The young man is confused, as he was under the impression that her family was extremely wealthy. He recalls seeing her posts on social media showing a life of luxury travel and fine dining. The thought of her eating expensive meals without any financial concerns leaves him speechless. She casually explains that she never paid for any of it herself, as everything was provided by sponsors. According to her, if an influencer has enough followers and good content, expensive sponsorships are easy to get. He asks if that means she received actual cash, but she says it was just a sponsored lifestyle with no real money. She then gets closer, asking if they can live together just until she saves up enough for a new deposit. He is completely overwhelmed by her closeness, his face flushing red as he starts to sweat profusely. And so, the mere thought of living together with the beautiful Princess Rin is too much for him to handle. He tries to calm himself down and think clearly, but his mind can only see her as a perfect goddess. He then tries to reason with himself, thinking that this is just a standard trope from old comics. He tries to rationalize the situation, thinking that cohabitation with a beautiful girl is a common trope in stories. But he quickly admits to himself that there is absolutely nothing normal about this, and he stands awkwardly in his apartment, still trying to process the fact that she is really here with him. The young man then asks about her clothes and other belongings, wondering why she arrived empty-handed. She explains that she had just stepped out for a moment when she was effectively locked out of her own place. When she returned, she found an eviction notice taped to her door, and the landlord had already changed the password. Without even a chance to grab a change of clothes, she was left homeless with nowhere to go. Because of her sudden predicament, she asks if she could possibly borrow some of his clothes. A little later, she comes out wearing one of his oversized t-shirts featuring an anime character. He is completely stunned by how cute she looks, his mind going blank as he stares at her. He sits down flustered, thinking his favorite 2D character no longer holds his attention, and she calls his name, Junbo, snapping him out of his thoughts as he turns to look at her, and she then smiles and asks if he is hungry, offering to make them something to eat in the kitchen. Before he can even respond, she gets to work, cracking an egg into a pot on the stove. He watches her from behind, a mix of nervousness and disbelief on his face. He never imagined he would see the famous Princess Rin cooking in such a comfortable setting. His imagination then runs wild as he pictures them happily cooking together like a newly married couple. She calls out to him from the kitchen, telling him that the food is ready and to come sit down. As they sit at the table, he apologizes for not having many ingredients since he usually just orders takeout. He looks down at the bowl in front of him, surprised that she made ramen but noticing the noodles are already soggy. He identifies the dish as Han River ramen, the kind grandmothers often make. She apologizes, thinking she might have added too much water, and she sighs, admitting she's not good at measuring the right amount of water, and jokes that she's getting thalassophobia from the soupy mess. He quickly reassures her that it's fine, saying less salty food is healthier and perfect for a late-night snack. He thanks her for the meal and begins eating the noodles as she watches him with a curious expression. A moment later, she starts eating her own bowl of ramen, a subtle, satisfied smile on her face. As he eats, the young man pauses for a moment, lost in thought about everything that has happened. He thinks that when his time to die comes, he will remember this very moment and feel that it is too precious to leave behind. So elsewhere in the apartment, the small creature Lato-chan rests comfortably on a pillow inside a closet surrounded by stacks of money. He later opens the closet door, checking on the creature because he was worried it might feel stuffy inside. He then prepares his own bedding on the floor, reasoning that animals often prefer dark, enclosed spaces to hide and rest. After getting his bed ready, he quietly wonders if Princess Chan has fallen asleep in the other room. He finds her fast asleep in his bed, and assumes she must be mentally and physically exhausted from being kicked out of her home. He then notices that she's using his blanket, which hasn't been washed yet. The realization that she is sleeping while smelling his body scent sends his imagination running wild. A deep blush creeps across his face as his thoughts take a decidedly lewd turn. He immediately snaps out of it, grabbing his face in shock at his own perverted mind. He tells himself that with thoughts like these, he can't possibly continue living with her, and deciding to wash his dirty thoughts away with cold water, he walks out, only to find her sitting in the living room, and see she is sitting on the floor in the dark, hugging her knees, with a distant look on her face. She looks up at him and apologizes for waking him, explaining that she tried to be as quiet as possible. He reminds her that she is welcome to use the bedroom, but she explains she just came out to wash her face. At that moment, he is shocked to see what's on TV. It's the icon Attack on Titan promotional scene. He asks if she also watches the show, adding that he has seen it many times. She confirms with great enthusiasm. He begins a passionate speech about how Truroku often looked down on the series, calling it a mistake of generalization. She starts laughing, finding his sudden seriousness quite amusing, and so seeing that he's a fan, she asks if he wants to watch it with her since she can't seem to sleep. They sit down together, and he asks her how many times she has watched the entire series. On the screen, a character from the show delivers the famous line about dedicating their hearts, and they watch the intense scene together, and he can't help but comment on how cool it is. He excitedly explains that this is the epic moment when Captain Levy first says the line. Then, she suddenly leans her head on his shoulder. Her eyes are closed, and she appears to have peacefully fallen asleep right there beside him. He continues talking about the show, pointing at the screen, completely unaware that she is no longer listening, and he slowly turns his head, a deep blush spreading across his face as he realizes how close she is. He nervously wonders if this is just some kind of prank or if she is being serious. Looking closer, he can hear her soft breathing and finally understands that she has genuinely fallen asleep. Now he is frozen in place, completely unsure of what to do in this unexpected situation. The night passes peacefully in the towering luxury apartment building. The next morning, the girl is seen sleeping soundly in the bed he gave up for her. She slowly starts to wake up, rubbing her eyes as the morning light fills the room. She then sees him already dressed and holding a briefcase, asking if he is awake. He greets her with a cheerful "Ohio," and she explains that she fell asleep. She then asks if he slept well. He gives her a thumbs up and says he did, even though he didn't actually sleep a single wink. As he is about to leave, she asks where he is going, noticing he is all dressed up, and he tells her he is going to pay the remaining balance for his sister's house. She waves goodbye, telling him to see her later. But just as he's leaving, she asks him to wait, and she then asks if she can use his computer for a little while. He happily agrees, telling her there is a laptop on the desk in the small room. He waves one last time before heading out, leaving her alone in the apartment, and as he walks away, she watches him go before heading toward the room with the computer. A dark, intense look comes over her face as she stands in front of the door. That night, as rain pours down on the city, the young man returns to his apartment. He finds a pair of shoes, a wallet, and some documents scattered on the floor by the entryway. So when he gets back to his place, he discovers that Princess Rin is gone. He quickly checks the closet, only to find that all the money and Lotto Chan are also missing. A wave of pure terror washes over him as he screams out Lotto Chan's name in a panic. Our boy is completely shocked and shouts out the name Ganjulin. He then asks if the woman who stole the money is the same one he knows, and his boss calmly confirms it and says she was the one who reached out to him. Still in disbelief, his friend asks if Ganjulin really contacted him first, so the boss explains that she found him through DMs after seeing him on her feed. The Band-Aid guy looks at the phone and feels a huge wave of jealousy. But his other friend remembers the money was kept in the closet, so he asks the big question of whether Ganjulin came over to their house. A tense silence fills the room as the two friends wait for an answer. The boss then drops a bombshell on them and says she stayed the night. Immediately a flashback shows the two of them cuddling in bed. Both of his friends are absolutely speechless to hear that she slept over, and they feel totally defeated since they can't possibly compete with that. However, the styled hair guy seems to have a sudden thought. He asks his friend if Ganjulin didn't used to visit their store with a guy, and so they are shocked again at the revelation that she has a boyfriend. The boss then confirms that she did indeed come by with him sometimes. In fact, she only ever bought things for that boyfriend of hers. It becomes clear she approached their rich boss just to scam him out of his money. After that, she took the cash and went to spend all of it on her real lover. The boss asks for confirmation that she came to the store, and his friend yells that she was with her boyfriend. Hearing this, the boss just smiles and says that everything is perfect now. The scene then shifts to a flashback of Ganjin's past, revealing her abusive father. When she was just a child, she received no help and was constantly hurt by him. He would beat her mercilessly whenever her mother wasn't at home, and when her mom was present, she became the target of his violent rage. Ganjulin had to witness her mother being constantly abused for no reason. One day, she thought she might die, so she hid in the bathroom and called the police. Hearing the police enter the house, she thought her father would finally be taken away, and so but from inside the bathroom, all she could hear was laughter. A moment later, a policeman opened the door and found her hiding there. The officer then scolded her, telling her that she has to listen to her father, and so they treated it as simple home discipline and told her father not to scare her too much. After the police left, her dad looked at her with a terrifying expression. That day, she was forced to kneel and beg for forgiveness as he held a belt. She was completely terrified, covered in bruises from head to toe. After he was done, he would send her to the nearby supermarket to buy him alcohol. Even as a 9-year-old child, she felt ashamed of her appearance. So before going into the market, she would always try to clean herself up a bit. She would then put on a fake smile, trying to look like a normal, happy kid. The supermarket lady looks at young Ganjulin with a face full of pity, and she then hands the girl her change as Ganjulin thanks her with a big smile. Walking away, she feels relieved that the woman didn't seem to notice her bruises. From that day on, she started staying outside all day just to avoid her father. She would wait at the playground until she was sure her dad was fast asleep, and every single day, a young boy would always pass by her at the same time. Ganjulin never knew why, but that kid always had a huge smile on his face. Then, a little while after he passed, she would see him coming back down the street. He was always with his older sister sharing some snacks and laughing together. He looked so happy and even said he had to protect his sister in place of his parents. But her own nights were not so cheerful, especially when it started to rain. Hiding inside a playground tube, she shivers from the cold, wondering when she can go home. All she can do is hope that her father falls asleep early tonight. But suddenly a man appears right in front of her hiding spot. Looking up, she sees a terrifying face and her heart just sinks. Her father found her and immediately grabs her by the hair in a rage, and he drags her out into the rain, screaming at her for wandering around outside. It turns out he's mad because he had to come get his own alcohol in the rain, and she completely forgot that on rainy days he goes to the bar near the playground. He keeps yelling as she blames herself, thinking she's just too dumb to avoid this, and she thinks that if she had just been better, her life could have been different. Maybe her family could have been happy and smiling just like that little boy's, and she had never cried from her dad's beatings before, but that day was different. He gets even angrier and asks what right she has to be crying in front of him. With a face full of rage, he screams at her to stop her pathetic crying immediately. But then, he suddenly gets hit hard from behind by something, and so, the happy boy from the playground appeared and smacked him with a yellow umbrella. Her dad cries out in pain, completely surprised by the attack. He turns around and furiously asks the little boy what the hell he is doing. The boy bravely stands up to him and yells at him to stop hitting a child. He puts himself between Ganjulin and her father, trying to protect her. Ganjulin looks up at her unexpected hero, her eyes filled with tears. The flashback ends and we see adult Ganjulin in a very bad situation. She's tied to a pipe on the floor, her body covered in bruises and feeling a lot of pain. She's hot, thirsty and hungry, feeling her energy drain away. She tries to break free from the zip ties but finds that she has no strength left. As she lies there, she starts to wonder if she's really going to die like this, and she doesn't mind dying but feels worried about leaving her mom all alone. After all the suffering, she begins to think that maybe it would be better to just die. But just as she's about to give up, she sees someone's legs through a nearby door. Looking up, Ganjulin's eyes meet her visitors with a glimmer of hope. It's the rich boss, and he's completely stunned to see her tied up like this. Her eyes widen in a mix of surprise and desperation for him to save her. And then, after holding it in for so long, tears finally start to stream down her face. With renewed will, she cries out for him to please help her live. The story then flashes back a few hours earlier to Murray University Hospital. A sleazy-looking guy is stopped by nurses who tell him patient Manhwa is not taking visitors. He scoffs at them and even tries to vape inside the hospital, being a total jerk. However, a nurse stands her ground and insists that he has to leave. This makes the guy absolutely furious and he violently grabs the nurse. He then shoves both of them out of the way while yelling about his importance. One nurse quickly calls for security as he just laughs at their attempt to stop him. He smugly walks towards the door, thinking he has won, but suddenly, a tall man in a suit appears and blocks his path completely. The sleazy boss is shocked and stammers, asking who this new guy is. The man calmly states that Miss Chien isn't seeing anyone and he should leave, and so the boss tries a different tactic, pretending to be a worried colleague. He then creates a distraction by yelling out as if Manhwa is in trouble inside the room. Using that brief moment of confusion, he quickly slips past the bodyguard. The sleazy boss is now inside, but he seems shocked that his dumb plan actually worked. The bodyguard easily takes down the sleazy boss, who's now on the floor. He complains about his neck hurting while the bodyguard just stands there. After dealing with the guy, the bodyguard calmly opens his hand. In it there's just a single piece of throat candy. He then offers the candy to the patient Manhwa as a get-well gift. She looks confused by the very strange present. While dragging the boss away, the bodyguard explains the situation. The guy kept insisting he came just to visit and even brought a gift. So with a slight smile, the bodyguard says it looked like he just grabbed whatever was in his pocket. It wasn't a real gift at all. Manhwa explains her blood sugar is unstable from chemo and asks him to throw it away. He jokes he'll throw it into his mouth instead. Later, she's on the phone with Junbo, telling him the director left. Meanwhile, the bodyguard starts unwrapping the candy for himself. She then questions Junbo, asking if a 24-hour live-in bodyguard is a bit much. He's just closing the blinds in the background. On the other end of the line, our rich boss Junbo replies to her. He says he's just doing it for his own peace of mind. Cutting back to the boss's house, his friends are in trouble. One of them points at the door and says they are completely screwed. The friend with styled hair shows them the latch is broken. He's panicking about what happens if that psycho comes inside, and so the other one lays out their new plan. They have to find the money in Ganjulin before the boyfriend gets to them, but just as they start moving, a sound comes from the front door. All three of them immediately freeze in their tracks. Suddenly, one of them yells for the others to hold the door. The styled hair friend rushes to block it with his body. On the other side is Ganjulin's boyfriend, a tattooed guy with a knife. He's trying to force his way into the apartment. He's furious and keeps trying to push the door open, ready to attack. The knife in his hand looks incredibly sharp. He manages to open a small crack and yells at them. He wants to know what they're doing inside his house, and the friends struggle with all their might to keep the door shut. They scream in terror as the psycho tries to get in, and suddenly, the blade of the knife pokes through the opening. It comes terrifyingly close to the friend's face. The boyfriend starts stabbing through the gap, threatening them. The friend holding the door screams as the blade gets closer. The guys are totally panicking as the psycho keeps trying to stab them through the door. Meanwhile, our protagonist Junbo is just pissed. He yells for his friends to pull the door harder since the guy's arm is stuck. They get his arm out, but now the knife is wedged in the door. They wonder if they can somehow push it out. The story then flashes back to an earlier moment. It turns out what Yang Ajun said was only half correct. Junbo had looked it up online. He learned that depositing 10 million won wasn't automatically considered dangerous. An official investigation would only be launched for suspicious transactions like money laundering. It would only happen if an obviously excessive amount of cash was being deposited or withdrawn. This makes Junbo realize his situation fits that description perfectly. Furthermore, this rule applies to both bank counters and regular ATMs. The whole situation suddenly seemed a lot more complicated than he first thought. But then he remembers that the god of money did say something about this. In another flashback, the mysterious man gives Junbo a very important warning. He explains that the cash taken from the wallet cannot be deposited at a regular bank or ATM. In fact, he says there is one and only one way to get that cash into Chi and Junbo's account.